na seda na de mo anwumre eda wase sa ya wope na wasan de anwumre acha yembio akwan sonko so na de program e hye wonsa yasa de Margaret hye wonsa we onyame a wohira nyansa ene no die mu ensama wa plan ya mo akwa se ana wa frana so meka no e be so na wa yi huni am hye nyina afri no mu na be fri no mu aba no enye na efri wa awrade ho ye na ye tie so ye be so na ye tie gopom apa e be nya afri mu no ye mfa mobra na sanchana so oba ya irama ya jai program ni na de hye wonsa na ene sa mai na hye so mai a ye mfa wase da ni in so tie esanse ya bisa e wodo ba ne di munti amen.
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 Actually, there's communication for my team song. No, team song this year, you know about Margaret to the end of the program. No, be my team. You say we have to pay attention at the one. It's you know as well. Communication.
Nijijuma watopen Jesus shrafu Jesus.
Amen. Amen. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone had a productive day today. Whatever you were doing, I hope everything went well and God was with you. So today's topic, I'm going to be focusing on cognition and aging. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Please let me know if you can see the PowerPoint slide.
Yes, Margaret, we can see it.
You can see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right.
No, I don't think I see it.
No. Okay, I'll try again. Give me 1 second. I apologize. 1 second, please. Sorry, technical difficulties. Okay, I apologize for that. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes, dear.
Okay, I apologize again. Okay, so tonight's topic will be on cognition and aging. But before I go into further detail about that, I just want to take some time to talk about the brain and how it works. So, the brain is made up of different parts, and each part of the brain is responsible for different things. So this right here is an image of a brain, and there's 4 highlighted parts. And each part or each lobe has its own responsibility. So briefly, I would just like to go through each lobe. So the purple area, which would be in the front, right behind your forehead, the frontal lobe, that part of the brain is responsible for your ability to move your body. So that includes moving your legs to walk, moving your arms to clean or to eat. The frontal lobe is also responsible for your memory, your ability to pay attention, staying focused on a task, not being easily distracted by things around you. The frontal lobe is also important for your language skills, being able to find the right words to communicate when you're talking with people, even being able to switch between different languages, you know, speaking Tree 1 minute and then switching over and speaking English the next. That area of the brain is important for that. The frontal lobe is also important for problem solving, meaning when you're put in a uncomfortable situation or a tough situation, how would you resolve that? How would you get out of it? For example, if you left your home and you were going to the store, and then on your way back, you realize that you don't have your keys on you. What would you do in that situation, right? That's problem solving. Are you just going to stand there and hope that the door would magically open? Or would you opt to probably call your management, call their superintendent in your building to come help you get inside? So that's the frontal lobe. Next, right behind the frontal lobe, in the middle of your head, is the parietal lobe. That area of the brain is important for sensory processing and sensory information, meaning how we're able to understand what we're sensing when it comes to touch, being able to detect if something is too hot or too cold, being able to sense taste if something is really sweet or something is really bitter. It's also important for pain, right? Feeling when something is really painful, how you'll be able to tell your tolerance level. The parietal lobe is important for sensory information. And then when we move towards the back of our head, right above our neck is the occipital lobe, the blue area that you see in the picture. That area is important for processing visual information. So processing everything that we see around us, being able to decipher that, okay, this area, the frontal lobe is purple, and the temporal lobe is orange, right? So that part of the brain is for everything visual. And then the last part, the temporal lobe, which is the orange area that you see in the picture, that area is responsible for understanding everything that you hear. So auditory information, understanding conversations when people are talking to you, understanding what's happening on the TV, on the music. That part of the brain is important for that. And it's also important for your memory, being able to retain information there. That's also important. So I'm not sure if many of you know, but as we age, different parts of our bodies are going to change. We aren't going to be able to do things that we were able to do when we were younger, when we were 10, 15, right? As we age, we start getting pains in our back. We start getting pains in our knees. We can't bend how we used to. We can't walk how we used to. Those are all part of aging, and that's normal. But outside of that, the brain also ages. It's reported that after the age of 40, our brain begins to shrink or get smaller. we lose volume, we lose density in our brain as we get older, and that's normal. But then in some cases, some people will experience even worse brain shrinkage. Their brain gets really, really small. And that's what we will call brain atrophy, or just loss of cells. And that's what you will see at the bottom picture. So at the top picture, we have an image of a normal brain with normal volume and density. That's how big it should be. And then someone whose brain has shrunk really, really small would be depicted at the bottom of the screen. And when our brain shrinks, the first area or the first parts in our brains that tend to get smaller would be the frontal lobe, which I discussed just now. The frontal lobe is important for our language skills. It's important for our motor skills, being able to walk around and to eat. It's important for our memory, most importantly. It's important for our attention and problem solving. So typically as we age, the frontal lobe and then also our hippocampus, which is somewhere deep inside of our brain, tend to get smaller first. The hippocampus is also important for our memory and for learning information. So once our brain starts to get smaller, our cognition begins to change. I will explain what cognition is in a bit, but I want you to understand that there are normal changes that happen when our brain gets smaller. And in other cases, there are not so normal changes that happen when our brain gets smaller. And that's usually due to like trauma or disease. So what is cognition? According to the American Psychological Association, cognition is all forms of knowing and awareness, perceiving, conceiving, remembering, reasoning, judging, imagining, and problem solving. So in essence, cognition is just a term used to explain the processes that happen in our brain when we try to talk, when we try to think, when we try to remember, when we try to learn, when we try to understand. So that's pretty much what cognition is. I'm gonna be referring to cognition often throughout this presentation. So as I mentioned, as we get older, our brains will get smaller, and that's normal. And with our brains getting smaller, we will lose some kind of cognitive function. So there are normal cognitive functions that would occur. And for example, that includes just simple forgetfulness or memory loss, like forgetting where you put something, or walking into a room and forgetting why you even went there. Or when you're having a conversation with someone and then you can't remember a word, you're just like, oh yes, I went to this place. What is it? What is it? And then as soon as the conversation is over, the word comes back for you. Those are all typical forms of forgetfulness or memory loss. We don't worry too much about that. However, there are some instances where the forgetfulness, the memory loss, the cognitive decline is so bad that it impacts a person's ability to function day to day. So people who have these severe cognitive decline or not so normal changes to their cognition, they forget how to eat. They forget how to pay a bill. They forget how to dress themselves. They forget how to talk. And in those instances, it's definitely recommended that you go see your doctor, who will refer you to go get further testing to figure out what the cause of that is. But in most instances, if the cognitive decline or the inability to function day to day, like not even knowing how to use the bathroom, appears, chances are those are little signs of dementia. So what is dementia? Dementia is the loss of memory, language, and other thinking abilities that affect your daily life. So I just want to mention that dementia itself, it's not a disease. But dementia is a word used to describe a group of symptoms where a person's cognition is impacted. And that's because of other diseases. Okay, so dementia is not a disease, but it's just a word used to describe people who have difficulty with their memory, people who can't talk anymore, people who can't complete daily activities like brushing their teeth and cooking for themselves. It's just an umbrella term used to describe dementia. So what are the causes or risk factors for dementia? Definitely age. It's reported that usually typically around 60 plus, people will show signs of cognitive decline or even signs of dementia. If you have a family history of somebody who has dementia or even any kind of severe cognitive decline, you will probably have some kind of genetics or predisposition to that, pre-exposure to that, excuse me. Anybody who has brain injury, so traumatic brain injury, for example, if somebody got into a car accident and they hit their head, they get to the hospital, they run all these tests and they see that there's bleeding in the brain or that there's swelling in the brain. During that period of recovery, they might experience some form of dementia. Sometimes it's permanent and sometimes it goes away when the brain heals and recovers, but we just don't know. Also, people who have chronic traumatic encephalopathy, so CTE. Typically, when I hear CTE, I think about athletes. I think about American sport, American football. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that sport is very, very physical. The players are pushing and knocking each other down on the floor. There's a lot of head injuries that are involved. And usually if you endure repeated head injuries over and over and over and over again, eventually it is going to cause damage to your brain, which can lead to more cognitive decline, rapid cognitive decline, and then possibly dementia. Also, neurological diseases and disorders can lead to severe cognitive decline and dementia. So people who have strokes are likely to have dementia, not always, but they could. People who have brain tumors may also develop dementia at some point. People who have Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease, and Alzheimer's disease are also prone to experiencing dementia. I know many of you are familiar with Alzheimer's disease. That is a form of dementia. But like I said before, dementia is just a term used to describe the symptoms that a person may be experiencing due to another disease. So on your screen right now, you will see 4 main types of dementia. Alzheimer's disease, which a lot of people are familiar with, is the most common form of dementia. It affects 60 to 70% of dementia cases. Then we have vascular dementia, which affects 10 to 20% of dementia cases. Then we have frontotemporal dementia, which affects 10% of dementia cases. Then we have Lewy body dementia, which affects 5% of dementia cases. And then there are other dementias that also take up or account for 5% of dementia. Excuse me. It's reported that there's at least over 100 different types of dementia, but the 4 right now that you see on the screen are the most common to appear. And these 4 dementias differ, or they're different based on how it affects the brain and then how it presents in the body physically. So I'm going to take some time just to talk about that briefly. So Alzheimer's disease, the most popular, right? According to the Alzheimer's Association, It's reported that 6.9 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease today, as of 2024. It's reported that 2/3 of those Americans who are living with Alzheimer's disease happen to be women. And Black African American people are 2 times as more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease as compared to other races. So what happens in the brain with Alzheimer's disease? In the brain, there's nerve damage and death of the tissues or the brain cells. There's an abnormal buildup of proteins, beta amyloid and tau proteins. There's a buildup of that, which eventually over time will lead to Alzheimer's disease and dementia. The effects of Alzheimer's disease. So usually in the early stages, people tend to forget conversations. They forget that they went to a party 2 days ago. They forget people's names, people's faces, and their emotions towards things change. Things that used to make them happy no longer make them happy. Things that used to not get them upset makes them really angry now. And then later on, as the disease progresses, they have difficulty talking. They have increased confusion, memory loss. They have difficulty swallowing, walking, and they also have poor judgment. I forgot to mention dementia or any signs of cognitive decline. Once you experience those things, it's not reversible, meaning it will just continue to get worse. It progresses over time. So that's just something to know. Then we have vascular dementia. Vascular dementia, in these people, typically you will see like mini strokes in their brains. If you're looking like at a MRI, like an imaging from the hospital, you'll see little mini strokes in the brain and different parts. That's due to blood in the brain being blocked. And as a result, the brain cells that we need to function are not getting the oxygen and the nutrients that it needs. So those brain cells will die. And like I said, once there's death to the tissue or death to the brain cells, it's not coming back. There's no reversing that. So people with vascular dementia, usually in the early stages, they have poor judgment, meaning they can't decipher or they can't see that something is bad and something is good. They have poor organizing and planning. They aren't able to come up with to-do lists for the day. They're not thinking ahead. They're severely disoriented. And also in the latest stages, you will still see that disorientation. They'll still be confused and they'll still have a lot of memory loss. Lewy body dementia. It occurs when there's a protein build up in the brain of Lewy bodies. They present the same way as Alzheimer's. They forget events. They forget people's names. They forget what they're doing in the moment. They have difficulty with their speech. But in addition to that, they also have sleep disturbances. They aren't able to get the 8 hours of quality sleep that's recommended. Like Dr. Poyebois mentioned on Sunday, sleep is important. And we need to be able to regulate our internal circadian rhythm. And unfortunately, for people who have Lewy body dementia, they have no sense of that whatsoever. So they're sleep deprived, which leads to anxiousness, sometimes depression. People with Lewy body dementia also have visual hallucinations. So that's like they're in the room and then they start talking to somebody and they believe that somebody is in the room with them. And you walk into the room and you see them having a conversation. You know that there's nobody else in there, but they're very adamant that there's somebody there or something there. So they see things that aren't there. That's what visual hallucinations would be. Then the next most common type of dementia is frontotemporal dementia. So in these people, the parts of the brain that are affected are the frontal lobes. and the temporal lobes. So as I mentioned before, the frontal lobe is important for movement, how we walk, how we are able to move our arms and do things throughout the day. It affects their ability to talk, being able to find the right words to communicate what they need in the moment. It also affects their judgment, being able to decide what's good and what's bad. It also affects the temporal lobe, which is important for understanding what you hear, what people tell you. Those parts of the brains are affected. So when you see them walking around, you'll see sometimes that they're very impulsive, meaning they don't think before they do things. They just do it without no care for the repercussions or what could happen to them at the end. They are also having issues with their emotions. They lack emotions. Sometimes you might see repetitive movements, whether that's tapping their leg all the time or moving a book from one side of the table to the next over and over and over and over again. People who have frontal temporal dementia also have repetitive speech. They're saying the same 3-4 words every 5 minutes. And eventually that will lead to complete loss of language skills. So they can't talk, they can't answer a question, they don't understand anything you're saying. And they also have memory loss. So, as I mentioned, cognitive changes are going to happen as you age. We can't avoid that. Sometimes hearing and talking about these things as cognitive decline and dementia may be really uncomfortable. Thinking about getting older is also uncomfortable for some people. But honestly, it's a blessing to be able to wake up every day, despite all the challenges that come with aging. As mentioned before, the groups of people who are more at risk for severe cognitive decline are those, or dementia, are those who have a family history of it, are those who have any kind of neurological disorder, a stroke, a tumor, or just simply their age. But because our health is our wealth, it's important that we try to promote healthy aging in everything that we do. So the question I pose is, what can I do? What can you do to make sure that your cognitive skills are intact, or you try to keep them as good as possible? You want to stay social, right? You want to make sure you continue to have that peer-to-peer interaction. Go see your friends, hang out with family, come to church, participate in church programs. That helps. That constant interaction with other people helps promote cognitive skills. You're being able to communicate using those language skills. That's important. You also want to try to get rest and sleep. That's important for maintaining our memories and keeping our memories intact. Like I said, Dr. Dubois had a great presentation on Sunday. I urge you guys to go rewatch or watch it on YouTube. He mentioned all the good things that come with getting quality sleep. And with that is good cognition and good cognitive health, excuse me. Next, you want to try to exercise as much as you can. Keep that body moving. Keep your body moving. It keeps all the muscles in your body strong and also keeps the mind strong. With exercise, you're able to create new connections within your brain, meaning when we're younger, our brain is not really fully developed all the way. And as we age each year, our brain creates new connections and new pathways when we learn new things. And then as we get older, we still have those connections and pathways in our brain. But if we don't use it, we kind of lose it. So moving and staying active and trying to activate those pathways in your brain is good for your overall cognitive health. Also, you want to try to participate or just do any brain exercises. So that could be as simple as playing a card game, playing a board game, Anything where it requires you to think and plan and use strategy or to problem solve is also good for your cognition. We talk about nutrition a lot. Nutrition is the most important thing. It helps our overall health. So you want to try to eat as much healthy vegetables and fruits. Any foods that are high in omega-3 fats are great, like walnuts and fish. Those are great foods to help you with your memory and your cognition. Also, you want to try to manage stress. Stress not only weighs on you physically, but it also affects your emotional and your cognitive skills and just ability and way of living. When you're stressed, you can't really concentrate. You can't pay attention. You can't learn anything new, you know? So if you're able to focus or try to implement these 6 things in your life, it would help with overall keeping your brain and your mind sharp and intact. But outside of yourself, maybe you know somebody who is experiencing severe cognitive decline or who is showing signs of dementia. First things first, please encourage them to go see their doctor, who will send them to go get further testing to figure out what exactly is causing them to decline so rapidly outside of like the normal aging. But things that you can do to make your interactions with them easier or to make their lives easier, you should try it, right? So these are a few things that you could do. One, you can keep identification information on the person at all times. So at my job, I work with a lot of cognitively impaired patients. They don't know their left from their right. They don't know where they're going or where they need to be. So having some form of ID with their name, their room number, or in this case, your family members or your loved ones, your friends, if you could keep a card in their pocket or in their wallet with their name, their address, phone number, maybe an emergency context. So God forbid if the person were just to wander off because they're confused, they're disoriented, and someone runs into them, they will be able to bring he or she back to where they need to be, back to safety. Also, another thing, you want to try to use clear and short sentences when you're talking with people who have cognitive decline and dementia. Why? Because we know that the areas of the brain that tend to go away the first is the frontal lobe, which is important for our language skills. So as the disease or the symptoms get worse, they won't be able to formulate sentences to tell you that they need to go to the bathroom or that they're hungry or that they're tired or that they feel pain. So something that you could use is to make it easier to communicate with them, try just asking them simple yes or no questions. Do you want to eat? Yes or no. Do you feel pain? Yes or no. Are you hungry? Yes or no. That will kind of eliminate or get rid of all the confusion and agitation. Something you could do as well is to use alarms to remind people to do things. So if you have somebody who needs to take medication at 10 a.m. in the morning, if you set an alarm and they hear a certain sound go off, they will remember that, okay, at this time with this sound, that means I have to take my medication. So that's a good thing to do. You might also want to keep a calendar of appointments. I say visual aids, anything that you can see with your eyes is great, because it's hard to miss it, especially if you have it on the wall or somewhere that the person usually goes a lot. That helps. So keeping a calendar for appointments helps to keep people who have cognitive decline and dementia oriented. It keeps them on track. It keeps them organized. They know what to expect for their day, so that when you say, okay, it's time to do this, it's on the calendar. So now they're not agitated or confused about it. Also, you might want to keep the same daily routines when you're interacting with them. So I don't know if there's people here who do home care, home health care. If you have a patient who has severe cognitive decline, dementia, you might want to keep the routine the same. If they wake up at 8 and eat breakfast, if they take their medication at 10, if they take their shower at 12 p.m. You want to keep it the same because any disruption in their routine will not only confuse them, but also irritate and agitate them. And we don't want to cause that either. So these are just a few tips that you can keep in mind for yourself, or for your loved ones or people that you're caring for, things that you could do when dealing with people with cognitive decline. Okay, so I said a lot today, but my takeaway, if you don't remember anything else, please remember cognition is just how we're able to talk, remember things, how we're able to pay attention, how we're able to understand and make great judgment and have good reasoning with things. Cognitive decline is normal as we age. Our brains get smaller, especially in the areas of the brain that are important for memory, talking, movement, moving your legs, your arms, understanding what people are telling us, and problem solving. If we get put in situations that are hard, how can we get out of them? Next, cognitive decline that is severe enough to impact day-to-day function is not normal. So like I was using the example, if the person doesn't remember how to go to the bathroom, they don't remember that once you get to the bathroom, you have to pull your pants down or you have to wipe, that's an issue. So I recommend that you please speak to your doctor and they will send you to the appropriate people to get further testing to figure out what is going on. And they could probably provide you with either medication to kind of help slow down some of the symptoms they might be having, or send them referrals to receive therapy services. Next, dementia itself is not a disease, but a group of symptoms. So that being memory loss, loss of language skills, loss of attention skills, loss of movement. Those are all symptoms that can be classified or called dementia. Last but not least, please try to stay active, stay social, get rest, eat right, manage your stress, and play games. And I know that with God on our side, we'll be able to do these things. And I pray that God just continues to be with all of us. Okay, thank you. So that's it. I'll take questions.
Okay, yeah, but that is Sister Margaret. I saw a nice presentation of the and the tough about and say, you know, I drain so senior when I'm ran, son, I drain it at here. You know, maybe I organ uno na nego fear. So, Jonas, as small candy, Adreno, intimate function to say first, you know, and maybe. The American say na activities. Maybe you see chow kuto near the idea boat near the best say mammy. You be jai side your man say be in sa you know. You be up to 15-20 minutes questions, 2 questions, best say or the ever. Mrs. McCarthy.
That's far, Madam. What church name you? My question is, what's the difference between dementia and mental illness? So I be say, I do baby with the mental illness, with the dementia.
Disclaimer, I will try my best to answer these questions, but I'm not a doctor. But from my understanding, if any doctors are on the line who can better answer this question, please feel free. But mental illness is more of a psychotic, like there's, how can I say this in layman terms? There's like a chemical imbalance, like how the brain operates and works, like how the brain sends signals to different parts of the brain is a little bit off. So with mental illness, it's more of like an emotional kind of breakdown, whereas dementia, outside of just the memory loss and the language loss, is also a physical thing. It affects everything from the head down. That's my understanding. If there's any other doctors on the line who could better.
Yeah. Hi, Margaret. Thank you so much
Hi.
for the presentation. I really took a lot from it. Just to briefly answer mental illness versus dementia. Mental illness is under the category of psychology, psychiatry, and it does involve with like different ways of behavior that are not typical behavior, as well as so things for like depression, anxiety, or schizophrenia that affects your mood, but it also is a chemical basis to it. Whereas dementia is really about like function and memory, like you've been saying. So they all kind of under the umbrella of like neurological deficits and impairment. But it's just a matter of like different ways of manifestation. But what I wanted to say, Margaret, is that great presentation. I think I'll admit one of the things that I'm so scared about is dementia. And so, how do we determine like, okay, am I on the road to dementia? Because, sometimes we forget things and, I'm like, oh gosh, there's something going on, so like, I guess it's reassuring to hear that, there's some normal forgetfulness that occurs with a normal part of aging. And it's reassuring to hear that. So that's the only comment I wanted to make. But thank you so much for that.
No problem, no problem. So yes, it is a little intimidating and you're just afraid. You're not sure of like, okay, is this the first time?
May I someone? Hello.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Margaret, great lecture.
Yes.
Dr. Great lecture. What
Okay.
church pana me boa question na kakra. I think say when it comes to dementia and mental illness now. Mental illness there a big umbrella. Problems in I won't say your medical and your mental. So into mental illness no it be a dementia crown be chassis. But how you can in medicine so be dementia usually in medicine be a neurologist no psychiatrist no bit me afede but yes psychiatrist no meta my neurologist no and eta ebo enti me charity and the can say ni nyina no come under mental illness dementia and other problems say your friend is schizophrenia and all the other problems I want. Nina will come under mental illness, including dementia. But one more time, no dear, especially in America, dear, you're my neurologist, no, and everything. Until idea a big a problem, but until how we take care of it, the better is a money different, but in a mental problem, maybe. I can't be person.
Madam Pacho, Margaret. I'm Dr. Francis Ajimai was a psychiatry specialist. And so Opa also with me one or two things about the difference between question or Kayano. Sister McCarthy Ebusayano. Means Dr. Francis or
I tell you, Pacho, Mato Bacho, it's when on the answer scenario, the Obiadia money correct. In that said, Obia cano said mental health no delay with the more Canada many times, at least mental health board net to say Dr. Pepraka and the American Psychiatry and Neurology and yes, share some neurological stuff, just in case like neurologists knew how I know mama ya the as far as separating me and one and no for being but the only thing I'll say and so it will be a friend of pseudo dementia. Pseudo no just means false. And many times, most dementia patients now you're dealing with party many times be a neurologist and feel maybe a psychiatric issue. Most of the time be a severe depression. Ebe to me will be presented to say your dementia. And many times, you know, we need to brain and evaluate. So you feel it, you suspect it be a young side, a manage. Now be sometimes the big hope you cry say a young issue because young issue the at least you bet me a manager more better. So sometimes how you connect to her. But I believe say Saturday you be share to act some mental health stuff and see. But you be share
Amen.
Thank you, doctors, for explaining that better.
So you will take about 2 more questions. Say you or no more hand. So questions in the one more. The dynamic say nice presentation. Namia for this is Margaret. So I did my Margaret here that was it. Namia Shasafi. Nami power channel so you better also and the attendance was very good. Any power 100 and your line so which is more encouraging. Young Koso and share your flyer and I invite you now for no musumiti because idea is no now what you know. Na media chair kwa ebitueska na yakọ church omo ana ye de nya no kwa ye best say take advantage of it na me aduma ochina time I the line so 7:20 na communication for us start she now a question with me visa
Me Patrick Tizo, I think so be visa question what chat you know.
oh
And I saw so question no yeah answer.
me question with me read my
Oh, I can read it. I think somebody deleted it, but
Yeah.
basically the question was, is it normal for somebody to have dementia at ages 40, 50, or 60s? And can they get dementia from, you know, hitting their head or from substances?
Yes. From what I've learned in my training, yes, there's definitely early stage dementia, definitely people who are 40 or 50 years old are possible to get dementia. I believe in those cases that is due to like genetic history, like a family history, as to why somebody could get dementia that young. So it's very possible. In regards to getting dementia from hitting your head, yes. Or from substance abuse, yes. As far as hitting your head, like I mentioned, anything traumatic that causes damage to your brain after or during the process of healing, whichever area of the brain that was affected may lead to some form of dementia. So if they hit their head towards the front of the brain, the frontal lobe, there might be some aspects of their language skills that are impacted, their memory that's impacted, their problem-solving skills will be impacted. As in regards to like drugs, drug abuse, yes, definitely those people are also high on the list of people who would get dementia, because we're not supposed to be using drugs, and the way the drugs affect our natural chemical balances in our brain and stuff, it doesn't mix well. So yes, those people are, or it's possible for them to also develop dementia. And dementia is not reversible, but there are medications and stuff like that that the doctors can provide to kind of ease some of the symptoms that they're experiencing.
Question. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
that's fine.
also.
Yes, a quick question. Are there certain kinds of games that we should engage in to decrease our risk for dementia? Like, is it board games, word games, math games? What kind of games?
Oh, all of the above. I like to use a lot of like crossword puzzles and word search puzzles with my patients. If people are good at playing chess, I don't know, Ghanaian games, Ludo, it's fun. Anything where you have to think strategically, it's good. Definitely anything like word puzzles, crossword puzzles are great. Memory games are great, like matching Mix and matching games are great too. Those will kind of tighten those cognitive skills a bit. Or even learning how to play a new game is also great.
Margaret, in fact, my question, I get a lot. It seems like America has no dementia, no a year rampant, and I see a tell is it true? And I say because Ghana, I say Ghana, yeah, mommy, for now, munya dementia, no. Meaning say you move the brain because they be exposed to it, and say I dream say be a base, man, I say things like that. I don't know if you could comment on that, no. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to ask.
I think I do.
Is it more rampant? Yeah. Is it more rampant here, or is it about the same in Ghana too? It's just that we are more aware of it here in America. And I say our diet.
Ooh, yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix. It's a mixed bowl. I do feel like what we put into our bodies and the access to things that we have here in America, sometimes it could be way more detrimental to what stuff or the resources that people in Ghana have. So I do feel like in general, dementia is everywhere. It's not that it's so much more here in America as compared to Ghana. Maybe in Ghana, people are just not aware of it. There's lack of awareness of what it is and how it presents, because dementia can present in any way. It's not just so much like just, oh, they forget, so that's just dementia. Dementia is an umbrella of things. So I feel like it appears as much in both communities, but here with substance abuse and the whole 9 mental illnesses, the likelihood of, or even access to resources, as I mentioned, we have more testing here. We have more resources to get those kind of testing. So it may seem as though in America, there's more dementia as compared to Ghana, but that's just because we're testing more here than in Ghana. But I feel like across the board, dementia is everything.
If the time when with my comment on the question if it's okay.
Dr. Manenko.
I think that if your question is very important. One thing I see here, yes, we have your dimension of Ghana, but I have not read any research yet. But the problem where we work with is it's almost at so much symptoms now. Send if you mention there should be some home be some spiritual to be in and enim. It is there. You mean Ghana no. Maybe by how me starting nursing school so sad you would an paying for be enya near the sheba it may be to prayer camp near Brom. So mo kasa mo review mo who be on the near my day at all. And I think that the main yes in free and if your question said so what to say be I want to be which you be started yes I mana na you fresh off will be say I'm forwarding at the encore starting seeking medical attention. Send a work room one or if you away chrome super. That's it.
Actually, who Mr. Dupoku and Sa Sorcerer. Dr. Ajima, in part, you'll be taking your question about.
Your media and question, one of the boy. Senior Osichi Mono, dementia, no, I don't know how, no, just the biggest risk factor, no, Unini, just Obito no Jum was I wish I never grow old, and so then I'll be a benini. Now, so yeah, not say, can you say, one more in the year, no more fear of them, no more fish or more dear, or more and come home. But say, oh, wow, and Temoa, she said, will be to me as you what you know to the level, say, a be an amipa, unyasa, I don't know how no. We said, near my walk, a boy, and to me. And I could see I don't know how no to say, and you and a pie, exercise, and now yeah challenge yeah adwene yeah stress level no yeah ho adwuma saa nneɛma no yɛhyɛ aseɛ ɛfiri nkwadaa sɛ wosua no saa nneɛma no wɔanni ho dwuma a ɛkyerɛ sɛ w'ani bɛteɛ no na adwenemuhaw no ebi ato sɛnea ɔsi kyerɛkyerɛ mu na ebinom nso de ka ho no kyerɛ sɛ wosua koraa a wobɛtumi anya bi ɛfiri sɛ sɛnea ɔkaeɛ no dementia no bi wɔ hɔ a ɛyɛ bi a blood vessels no na adamage nkwadaa nketewa anya stroke nti sɛ akwadaa ketewa anya stroke deɛ a ɛne yɛsɛ kyerɛ sɛ akwadaa ketewa bɛtumi anya dementia nti yɛsɛ mmɔfra no yɛnkama mpanimfoɔ nko yɛkama obiara hyɛ aseɛ didi yie hyɛ aseɛ nya berɛ yɛ exercise hyɛ aseɛ na challenge w'adwene obi wɔ hɔ a owie school a nwoma koraa wɔnkan bi da kyerɛ sɛ da bi ayɛ adwuma mmɔfra no bi wɔ hɔ kyerɛ sɛ ha sika a yɛbɛpɛ yɛ nti yɛmu pii yɛnyɛ adwuma baako nti yɛnya adagye koraa na yɛada kyerɛ sɛ ɛbɛduru bi na sika a wapɛ firi adwuma no mu no ɛntumi mmoa wɔ w'adwene no ho anaa wayaresɛm baako a mede ka ho finally ne sɛ obi so nya dementia no a nneɛma a ɔkeka kaeɛ no baako a ɛno nso ɛboa paa ɛyɛ music research a kyerɛ sɛ adeɛ baako a nipa ɛyɛ the last thing a yɛadwene tumi firi kyerɛ sɛ deɛ ayɛ te sɛ ɛka yɛadwene mu a yɛadwene no yɛwura ntumi mfiri ɛyɛ music ɛnti sɛ obi nya dementia koraa na wotumi ɛyɛ nhyehyɛeɛ ma ne tie nnwom a berɛ a na ɔnya dementia ne n'ani gye ho a ɛboa no ma keep no quite alert na ɛwɔ n'asetena mu nti medase.
Okay, the doctor ase obi bisa sɛ dementia no ɛwɔ mmaa mu kyɛn mmarima anaa ɛwɔ sɛ
Yes, based on research, it does report that women are more likely to get dementia compared to men. And I believe the reason is one, age. Women tend to have longer life as compared to men. So with age comes more cognitive decline and then probably dementia. And I also read in the research that it has something to do with their estrogen levels. Dr. Sarah, if you have anything to add, but I believe like after menopause, our estrogen levels decrease in the brain, and estrogen is important in how our brain cells communicate and interact. So I believe that's also another reason why it's more likely for women to get dementia as compared to men. Hopefully that answers the question. If anyone else would like to add to that.
Oh, no, you answered it perfectly. I think one thing people should keep in mind is that estrogen, there's a good amount of estrogen in your body. And even when you're postmenopausal, there's still a small amount of estrogen that's protective for your heart and for your bones and for a lot of other development as well. And so if you think about the fact that if you decrease your estrogen in your body, it could increase your risk for heart disease. It makes sense that estrogen is protective for the brain because it decreases the risk for strokes and other ischemic or other problems that could lead to dementia. So I see that. I can't speak to it exactly, but I can understand that reasoning. But thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Sister Abigail.
Good evening, Pacho. Sister Abigail husband. Me sorry, so what kind of man here, but Nancy na meet program be, and I know more recommend this. Almost based on research. Sorry, me to go to research because they are there meet here. And normal can say people that go for walk whilst they have someone with them to communicate with. No, they find say they are less likely to have dementia or Alzheimer's. So the exercise part is there, but combining two of them, no. And also you talk about communicating and all that. and socializing. But normal recommend is that when you go for work, don't go alone, go with someone. And once you go for work, try and talk about different topics and everything. And they realize the people that do that, they are less likely to get it.
I definitely agree.
Wow.
It's almost like killing, two birds with one stone, You're getting the exercise that you need by walking, and then you're also getting that human interaction by going with someone. So that's a great, great point. Thank you so much for adding that. Thank you.
More any questions in na as sene na make and na me adoma wo china no ye beto ayi program so se obi a be keka no na de ye bia no bibia no akoso wano amaye ye be se ye be program ni ewi de nyina ba ewi Sister Margaret da so time ni wadisi how dey abre asafo no ye do bibia se onya abre so ebiti program no ye be se ma me mo mo so nwa yikuto isusa no sa emwaye ye be se ba Dr. Ajima share program ni nyina so amaye se ye ko dey radio so emwaye on ba na de pa enche we are na communication about your closing song no amaye that's
Papcha mama mompae. Ene ja Australia da was adum kese pa na adum bi ense obo ya no obafidi so na ensemo a emu odu se wankasa wona mo honhom kronkron so de ama ba na omde maye na yenso ye de akomapa etie. Ye yesre woni se ni yetie bia no maye mfanya adwuma. Nti saa na yetie ni saa na yamfa anya adwuma ene ne chese mfaso bia amaso. Maye ntumi enso entre afofo. Na fi wono so kwan ya ombefa so a obitimi atena pa na odi oni pedua no aya porbo ama wo Nyankopɔn. Ye de wase ye ba ye nua ya damfo ye bibia Margaret wode sa nje kese ya ma no na wono so wanya so den bra benifo edema no na fi wona modum so ama wabaye dwuma so atise Shrawo Shran Mebrebe, when I sit tremu, Nimfim, Dinanimu, Nawari mu, Nejuma mu, ma ensini ye, Shrani fie, Shrani mame, Shrani papa, Shrani nafufo, Shrana sorrowful, Nyano Musua, Omudi Nimu, almost be presented, or Chinani Adichie, Shrawo for Utumino, or Hodenu, Nimdiano, and Mao. Na senia yenya no mratwemu free Dr. Eboaso ba Dr. Sarah so na fi Margaret so de atoa so no ebenya ne Sarah akoye ne bia de wasio anadwi ye kodai fi ni pedua ne ye kra ehoma sem bia wo Yesu Kristo di monti amen.